the guitarist who transformed animal cries into music that changed the way people lost their addictions and isolation into solos that created an the whole generation collapses. When roses and guns detonated like a storm, witnesses observed Axl Rose yelling into the microphone, but in the shadows behind him, Slash was playing Shadow like though it were pouring. Whatever remained in his heart, he died after his heart stopped beating. Drugs, drink, and grief pulled him to the brink. Then he returned and grabbed his guitar and continued to play as like he had never halted, not for money or fame, but since it was the only thing that kept from vanishing. You might be familiar with Slash via My Darling Child, Welcome to the Everlasting, Top Hat, Through the Jungle, and Curls, yet you're unaware of his best friend passed away in his arms that night, or the death of his stepdaughter, and the internet was flooded with conjecture. You have no idea how much he have to pay in order to remain here and retain. Standing alone myself amid the cries of the between the crowd's shout and the past, this is the voyage of a spirit yelling in quiet, and you're going to discover the Slash's reality, not the stage legend. However, it was the man under the hat who once passed out and drew himself back up early with the exact chords from hell. Like Slash wasn't made to blend in, instead, he was. His genuine name was born to feel out of place. Was July 1965 the birth month of Saul Hudson? London's Hampstead is a hub for artists. The same was true for rebels and intellectuals. Anthony Hudson, his father, was an designer of album covers who collaborated with Neil Young, his mother Ola, and other artists. A gifted black American, Hudson, renowned in the fashion industry for creating clothing for celebrities like David, Ringo Starr, Diana Ross, and Bowie. From the moment of his birth, Slash was the son of two universes that were difficult to combine. A child of mixed race stuck between the prim England's whiteness and the racially America was torn between a high art and a. In this interview, Slash talks about his hectic real life. Remarked of his dad, he was a family rebel, attended art school, married a woman of African descent, and joined no one in his rock and roll culture is. Family agreed with that. His father's family members interrupted them when Slash was 5. The household relocated to Los Angeles, Laurel Canyon, a sanctuary for the artists he grew up with in the 1970s. Get-togethers with alcohol, smoke, and rock. Joni's strange personalities and music. Carly Simon, Jim Morrison, Glenn Mitchell. They all went through phrase. Like fuzzy shadows carved into childhood. His memory, yet in the midst of all that light, was a child. Nobody really took attention to the Slash became quieter as he grew older. Then his mother's divorce arrived. Become more intimate with David Bowie, not only in his professional life but his father personally drank more and started to float off, slashing into a empty uncomfortably. Reasons for his life following the divorce descended into anarchy. He alternated between two residences, quietly observing adults. He drinks, fights, and leaves school. Was expelled for being a problematic child. Captured stealing, fighting, and taken into custody by police on multiple occasions for stealing in his. According to Slash's book, by the time he was 12, he was leading a mature life, yet without. Had a vague notion of his destination for some time. Discovered a way out of the BMX bike stunt. Performing freestyle tricks while biking downhill. He competed and practiced relentlessly. has achieved some local notoriety in the Los Angeles scene, but that happiness was short-lived. Couldn't cover the lengthy nothingness, that hazy, empty sensation of not being accepted. Then, somewhere, a pivotal moment heard an old vinyl record by chance, playing the bluesy, shrieking, wild Aerosmith. Something was awoken by the guitar's tone. Didn't examine it inside of him or thought too much. He understood he had to play guitar without funds for courses or expertise. Theoretically, simply a simple guitar and every book, he began at zero. He practices for 10 to 12 hours every day. His wrist ached from blistered fingers, but he didn't stop getting ear/injuries. Led Zeppelin, B.B. King's rewinding solos. Clapton, Joe Perry, Jimmy, and Jeff Beck. After imitating, Hendrix improvised. During this time of immersion in the Slash's guitar was Steven Adler at a youthful, vivacious, and innate drummers. Started bands, became close friends, and broke up and gave it another go, but nothing worked. Slash continued to improve without needing. He sensed the approval. Slash, himself one day in school, sang a solo in the vein of Van. The same students who had previously stayed away from him because of his lengthy hair. His oddity abruptly started in silence to view him in a new light without. Slash was heard talking, and the music had splintered open the initial door of the blackness right then and there. Slash no longer wondered why his guitar wasn't. He didn't have a passion, it was survival. Fantasy of stardom, didn't imagine who he would. He simply realized that each time he took up the guitar, and everything went peaceful, and for the first time in his life, he believed he was in charge of something. Slash wasn't born to be with Guns N' Roses, be famous. He was destined to play the guitar, and to sharpen his blade and burn with it. Abilities in school bands and obscurity. Initiatives that Slash formally entered the landscape for professional music early in the 1980s. He first became a member of a club named Road. Steven Adler, the drummer, and the crew enlisted punk-minded Duff McKagan, bassist from Seattle, which is when began to change when Slash and Axl first met. Izzy and Rose Stradlin are two oddballs from something sparked in Indiana, and they created, in 1985, Guns N' Roses. Although it wasn't all night long, the union rehearsals went smoothly. Their battles started in the garage. Were evenings without food prolonged? By stale bread and smokes, but in the middle of Slash experienced pandemonium for the first time. That his inner music had discovered a location to live GNR soon gained notoriety in the LA underground because to their extreme performances as well as the aggressive spirit on stage. Slash did not speak or preach, simply performed, and when he took the stage alone, froze in anything unadulterated, fierce, and intensely. He poured emotion from his fingertips in. Geffen signed Guns N' Roses in 1986. They documented their appetite for devastation under harsh circumstances, but with burning hearts and souls that breathe into each. Listen to the Welcome to the Jungle riff. Was one of my battle cry, Sweet Children. Began as a haphazard finger workout, but Slash transformed it into a tune that represents the world and where the record was released. July 1987, and was initially disregarded by television. Declined to broadcast the footage because of the violent radio station's hesitancy regarding visuals. The defiant lyrics, but the general couldn't take my eyes off of the Precious Child mine hit. She has top spot on Billboard Paradise. Welcome to City, which turned into a stadium anthem. Numerous movies made advantage of the jungle. TV series and video games that turned become a symbol. He didn't say anything, but he wasn't like. No glitzy tricks, Eddie Van Halen played without aim from the chest. He targeted pain with speed, and each solo was a unspoken confession, an inward scream. Condensed memory converted to string. And good success came after success in 1988, GNR published the contentious GNR Lies. Nevertheless, a multi-million seller started. Working with well-known musicians from Michael Jackson to Alice Cooper, but the 1991 marked the real peak, when you used your illusion, two of them dropped their wine. Attaining the number 1 spot at the same time. Position 1 and Position 2 on Billboard's historic achievement was those albums' musical heartbeat. Composed eerie solos for November Rain. Don't Cry was arranged to blend the fury of hard rock with lyrics about heartbreak. The tragic poet was, if Axl was the one who cuts the tune into the band's words, launched some of the largest tours worldwide, but lagging. Everything started to decay in the scenes. Slash's drug usage made Axl worse. Become more and more dominating shows were postponed because of internal conflicts. The press circled like fans rioting. The band teetered on the brink of disintegration. Slash continued to play at the point of collapse. Every night, he walked around intoxicated, holding a guitar as if it were a part of. Nobody recognized his body. Destroying themselves, yet everyone sensed the every string bend, every crying, every pain. While like though he were gushing blood through the amp following the Axl Use Your Illusion era. Rose become more withdrawn and domineering. And it took weeks for dictatorial tunes to complete a single drum beat performance. Were impulsively postponed, and the majority. Crucially, Axl started to see the band. When his private property cuts across the. However, he was an instinctual creature. Disliked control and didn't care about it. Strife, all he wanted was music. Correct, but as things went south, Axl wanted to change the members he intended to lead the band in the direction of industrial rock he desired. Complete power, including possession of Guns N' Roses names couldn't take it no longer. He quit the band in 1996. Remained when the media maelstrom struck. Axl didn't release Silent in 2006. A statement criticizing Slash and asserting that he had arrived at Axl's house pleading to got back together and disparaged Duff McKagan. The media leaped in with a slash at Scott Weiland. Was abruptly accused of being a traitor. The weakling was expelled from his own band, but in reality, none of it occurred in his 2007 autobiography. He explicitly stated that he hadn't seen Axl since 1996, and the thing that most wounded him wasn't the deception itself, but needing to justify it. To Velvet, his new band. I find it difficult to discuss about revolvers. Slash writes, even now. What hurt the most? Axl didn't need to be justified. Myself to those who should have. 10 years after leaving Guns to Know Me. Rose's Slash lived as if she had left. He created Slash's snake pit behind him, then proceeded to Velvet Revolver, who won a Grammy, but there was a pain deep within that Axl and Slash never fully recovered. They were diametrically opposed to one another. Control the other person who was born to be free. Were intended to produce timeless music and to ultimately annihilate one another. Then in 2015, nobody took anything seriously. It might have happened that Axl Rose contacted No media stunt, no press release. Just a phone call, a genuine dialogue. For the first time in almost 20 years. They decided to put the past behind them, and in 2016, Roses and Guns formally got back together for the title of the Not in This Lifetime tour. It made fun of anyone who believed they'd never again share a stage. The years-long trip brought in over $580 million, rising to the top of the highest-grossing tours ever, with the exception of Slash. What seemed real was more important than the money. Was standing when he entered the stage. The lights swept over them next to Axl. As well as the first riff of Welcome to the Jungle sounded like it had never been in a dream. Been broken after all that. Slash didn't return for the recognition, not for the. Fortunately, the music brought him back. Remained, and for the first time. It was played for a very long period. The proper manner with the individuals who had caused its own loss and misery. Heart failure and addiction under the stage lights. Slash remained still at all times. He covered his face and body with his hair bowed. Crouched as though his soul were in his Les Paul. Were vanishing from each note, yet nobody observed the decomposing body beneath. A heart breaking apart from the inside. And a figure moving stealthily in his direction. Last limit in 1987 as the desire for devastation started to blow up. Slash went to New York to perform at the. He met up with his family at the Milford Plaza Hotel. Close companion Todd Crew, the founder of the Jet Boy Todd's band, had recently experienced. They cuddled, drank, and ate after a traumatic split. Pizza let out a big laugh and rode a Central Park in a horse-drawn carriage. 18 hours later, heroin entered the picture. Later, Todd passed out and attempted to preserve emergency calls from him, but it was too. Todd passed away in his arms. He was just 21. Is returning to Los Angeles for the burial. In addition to facing death, Slash also suffered a quiet barrage of accusations from peers and friends. Murmured that he had shown Todd that he was the one there who pulled his companion into the chasm. Slash remained silent, but that wound was always recovered. He descended farther into darkness away from the stage. When he wasn't intoxicated, he jumped up. He smoked when he wasn't high. He yelled into space as he wasn't sleeping. As though he were torturing himself daily for unable to rescue his companion. And then, in 2001, the cost fell while on a hospital tour. Physicians determined that he had a significant heart condition. Failure resulting from cardiomyopathy. After abusing drugs and alcohol for 15 years, I was informed that I might only have 6 days or 6. Slash remembered his heart after months had passed. Sufficiently weakened by years of mistreatment, had painful and swollen to the point of rupture. Didn't arrive suddenly but rather slowly. A 7.5 centimeters implant was made by death doctors. Inside his chest, a defibrillator is prepared to startle him back to consciousness if his heart skipped a beat and didn't go through any stages. Just a man, no more applause, no alcohol. Lying with IVs attached in a hospital bed. Looking up at the ceiling, unsure of whether the following day he would open his eyes. He didn't pledge to change. To begin a fresh life like any low-cost redemptive tale he just experienced on a single day. One dim guitar note at a time for an hour. It took a few minutes in the recovery room. More years before he was genuinely sober. Due to his dread of dying, but because he was too worn out from living as though he were already passing away. In a subsequent interview, When questioned about the experience of surviving, Slash just grinned and uttered, "I'm just a regular person, not a health icon." Survivor. Slash's personal life has always remained one step out of the spotlight. Axl Rose shrieked and leaped away stages and made the world take notice of Slash. Was it playing quietly, like though no one was there? We're observing, but behind that quiet, a private existence in ruins was the figure. Broken and desolate, similar to the he created his darkest ballad ever with strings in. In 1992, Slash wed model Renee Shurin, an actress. Their marriage ended. After 5 years, they discreetly parted ways. No drama, no arguments, just two individuals who couldn't get to each other anymore. Continued to live as a solo musician until he got to know Perla Farrer, who convinced him that he could have a genuine. In 2001, they were married and had 2 children. Sons Cash Anthony and London Alio, 2002. In a sense, 2004 Slash accepted fatherhood. It even shocked him. He took the schoolchildren, constructed Lego sets using them, drove to football games with the family, and Slash, in one of his seldom sober interviews, stated, "Music saved me. However, my children provided me with motivation to continue, but that." Additionally, the illumination didn't last long. Perl's marriage started to fall apart. Approximately around 2010, when Slash was attempting to get clean permanently and develop his solo career, they filed for divorce twice. Reunited twice, but everything fell apart in 2014. Collapsed, and this split wasn't as tactful, since the person who had Renee Slash want to proceed swiftly, but Perl paused, requesting more financial terms in. Slash consented in court to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in assistance, extra 1.8% of his yearly salary for the kids until he didn't blame or argue in 2036. Wanted to put an end to it so that life could move on. "I did not want my life to become I wanted peace, but there was a paperwork war. I've never truly experienced tranquility." Following the divorce, Slash got back in touch with. He once dated Megan Hodges from 1989, a person he had discreetly split from. They reunited after decades apart in. There was no wedding or major announcement in 2015. Once 2 individuals were broken in separate ways, reassembling at the appropriate moment, but even when love returned, loss persisted. Ringing the doorbell on July 22, 2024. On Instagram, Slash shared a statement that left everyone stunned. Megan's daughter, Lucy Blue Knight, who Slash had always believed that his own died at the age of 25. The cause of death was not revealed in his Slash article. Stated, "A gifted, dreamy, and sweet soul. This world was just too heavy for you." Hours later, a planned post appeared for a long time on Lucy's own account. An apology brimming with suppressed grief. "Too long, there was nothing more that needed to be said." Slash begged the public not to conjecture without transforming tragedy into amusement for the man who had made it through rumors about drugs, booze, and heart failure. Breakups were unable to endure the suffering of losing a child who he had cherished as his own. No solo was available to release it. Guitar note that is sufficiently lengthy to convey the slashing tears. He just fell silently, returned and confronted the sorrow in the only manner he ever understood how, grasping his instrument and keeping quiet about life and legacy. Slash turned 60 in private, without any celebrations. The headline makes the memoir seem unimpressive. Reflections of a legendary figure reflecting on. He doesn't dwell on the past in his life. Still gets up early and works on his left. He hands his guitars and modifies the pickups. And composes fresh riffs as though time had never made contact with their fingers, but many of his contemporaries have distanced themselves from the stage to look for security or comfort. Slash remains standing there, his low. Paul's face was hidden by his bent hair, acting as though this is his final performance after Not In Is the Guns N' Roses reunion tour. This lifetime made more than $580. He didn't sleep with his band Million. The Conspirators and Miles Kennedy Slash published a number of really intimate Apocalyptic Love, 2012, and World on Fire, 2014, Chasing the Dream. None were created in 2018 to enhance his reputation. They were sincere investigations where Slash remained loyal to his origins while pushing and delving deeper into feelings. His own musical limits, followed by 2024.